So this quote is Bruce Springsteen. It's from Thunder Road. It's been my favorite Bruce Springsteen line forever. And show a little faith, there's magic in the night. I didn't really think a whole lot about what that meant until recently. And when I did, I thought, oh my God, Bruce, he's a seeker like me. Who knew? Um, so I wanted to just maybe talk a little bit about what I think it means. And the interesting thing, or at least I think about music, is I've talked to my son about this because he'll say, like, well, what are they trying to say? What do they mean? And I'm like, it's poetry set to music. So um, everybody gets to interpret it how they want to. And we don't even know what the writer necessarily meant when they wrote that line. But when I started, when I stopped for a minute to really think about this, the first thing that came to mind is the word night. And that one, not too hard to figure out, at least for me. Feel like he's talking about the shadow, darkness. Joe set me up beautifully last week by talking about the dark emotions and the shadow, these things that we maybe run away from. Let's see. Oh, he said, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. And to me, it struck me as like, there's a struggle against the darkness, always trying to push that darkness out, whether it's a little teeny candle or flashlight or, turning on the floodlights. It occurred to me that there's like this tension there. Darkness is something to struggle against. And I was thinking about, why we try to avoid this. It's the unknown, the abyss, which is kind of scary to think about. When my husband passed, getting towards the 1 year anniversary, the thing that scared me the most was thinking that I might go back into the abyss. I could feel it, like I could kind of see it, and I didn't want to even look at it directly. Like I'd see it out of the corner of my eye, and I was just so afraid to look in there again. And it didn't end up that I went there fully. And what I learned was that really, I think my fear was that it would kill me. And it didn't. So, the idea of like, I wonder how much of my fear was really just projecting that I was going to die, or this was going to be horrible, or I wouldn't survive it. So I'm just curious about that. And these are big emotions. Joe named 3: despair, fear, and grief. These are big things to wrestle with. And so it does make sense that we might want to push those things away. So that was my first entry into this line. From there, I went to the word faith. And I think that maybe faith is shorthand for what Joe's latest mantra: be still and trust the love that moves the stars. And, that's a simple thing to say. Sure, no problem. But is it simple? Not really. Once again, when I start thinking about this, and I've been thinking about Ron's comment, how does one trust that it is love that moves the stars? I want it to be like, I have the answer and answer that real quick. No, again, there's a pause and really this question of, how do I know that? And Joe has shared this quote: "The opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty." Now, I would have bet that Thomas Merton said that, but when I Googled it, it turned out it was Anne Lamott. So I don't know. I'm going to credit both of them just in case. But Anne Lamott, in one of her books, wrote, "The opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. Certainty is missing the point entirely. Faith includes noticing the mess, the emptiness, and the discomfort, and letting it be there until some light returns." So I think the questions are about having faith, curiosity, wondering. How do I trust? How do I put my faith in the power of love? I really don't know. I don't know the answer. It's a practice. This is a practice that I keep coming back to. I reached the ripe old age of 50 this year, and very conscious of, what I did for the first 50 years of my life. And, it was successful-ish, but there's some issues. And I'm going to try a few things differently now going forward. And one of those are things, things like radical compassion, radical self-love. And I say radical because to me, it's paradoxical, like it doesn't make sense, really. But so far in this experiment that I've been running, it's really the only thing that's worked. It's the only thing that's kind of budged any of these like deep-seated stories that I have about myself or the world or other people. So I'm going to keep trying and see. It does occur to me too that it's, like I think about it in my mind, like that seems silly and absurd, but it's like a resonant wisdom that comes from a different place. And, I point to my heart, and we've talked a lot about, having brains in places other than our heads. And it's tuning into this intelligence here. That's how I feel about it now. Let's see what happens in the next few years. And then my favorite, the next word. You guys can probably guess: magic. That one is the hook for me. That is the invitation to the mystery. That is why I keep showing up, I think, is because I'm intrigued by how this somehow mysteriously works, how it can be that we come here and we sit for 20 minutes and things shift. I think that's fascinating. It's alchemy in process. I don't know if ancient alchemists, I haven't researched it, so I don't know. Did they really think they could turn lead into gold, or was this a metaphor for like turning the dark things that happen into these amazing diamonds or golden treasures of wisdom? To me, that's as valuable as gold. So, why are we here? Why do we do this? Again, it's a bit of a paradox, slowing down, stopping, taking a breath instead of working harder, working faster, being more frantic, trying to bring more joy, like, let me go run and get that joy, instead of sitting, or the opposite, which is sitting with the darkness. Again, logically, it doesn't make sense to my brain, but experientially, it makes sense because I've seen it happen. I've felt it in my own self. So what I think about this quote, show a little faith, there's magic in the night. This is such a compelling invitation to come sit, particularly when it's in something that feels dark or painful or despairing or uncomfortable. And, for me, that stuff comes up all the time, actually. Kind of a revelation as I'm having this moment right now. Um, Life hands me opportunities. I was walking earlier this morning and wrestling, with anger, and I put this to the test. Actually, I was like, okay, let's see what's the magic in this dark emotion. Um, and it did shift a little. Not finished with it, but um, I think my ultimate question here to myself, and you're welcome to consider it yourselves, is what if I could hold that energy of magic anytime something dark or uncomfortable comes up? How would that change, like, the way I approach it? I know I've said this a bunch too, like I kick and scream and, resist every time like something difficult comes up, like I have a fit. I mean, I know I'm going to go through it anyway because that's the only way is to go through it, but I have my little fit and resist it before. Um, so what if I, instead of having my fit, what if I could switch that, flip that story and get excited because there is magic in the night. I am about to find something unexpected, surprising, exciting in this dark time that's in front of me. I think it's a good goal. Might even be a North Star for me because it's a practice. I'm thinking that, degrees of darkness might generate degrees of excitement. I can never talk about this stuff without thinking too about, I am not advocating that we don't acknowledge pain. There is a spectrum of suffering. And there's the lower painful, but situational, smaller, more minor things that are important to feel and acknowledge. But then there's these big global things like war, and just devastation on grand scales. And so I can never really, talk about visiting the shadow or sitting with the darkness without acknowledging that it's a lot. And I would never advocate for anybody to force a feeling of joy or excitement or happiness because they're about to, or they're going through a dark night of the soul. That just doesn't sit well with me. But for me, I am just thinking about how I can kind of crack my resistance to my own personal shadow and all of that comes up, and curious about how that might even change my story, of like, oh, all these bad things. Well, are they? Or do I just call it that? So I think those are my words that I have for you. I think I will make this screen go away. And now I can see everybody. And I am not going, I guess we could probably stop the recording, Susan, if you don't mind.